All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll call our October 26, 2021 meeting to order. It's a little bit past 7, so thank you everybody for your patience. The one day we would like to have the microphones to work, they are not working. So this will be audio recorded and minutes will be provided. We do have the backup camera. It's supposedly running, but I'm not sure if it's streaming actively live like it's supposed to, but Colin is checking on that while we speak. But in the meantime, we do have business to get to as we are government. So with that, I'll ask Jamie to read the Sunshine Statement.
Be advised that proper notice has been given by the Township Council in accordance with the Sunshine Law in the following manner. Notice advertised in the Burlington County Times and Camden Carrier Post on January 7th, 2021, and posted on the bulletin board on this same date. Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Jenny?
Here.
Ms. Pareo? Here. Mr. Lyon? Mr. Burrell?
Here. Thank you. First up, we have our minutes for approval. This is a motion approving the minutes for the July 27th, 2021 action and work session meeting. Can I get a motion and a second, please?
Motion.
Second.
Jamie, could you call the roll?
Mr. Smith?
Abstain.
Mr. Jenny?
Aye.
Ms. Pareo?
Aye.
Mr. Burrell?
Aye. Next, we have a motion approving the minutes for the August 3rd, 2021 public meeting. I'll entertain a motion and a second.
Motion. Motion. Second.
Jamie?
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Jenny?
Aye.
Ms. Pareo?
Aye.
Mr. Burrell?
Aye. Next up, we have our resolutions. First up is Resolution 2021-173. This is appointment of Melissa Larkin as the Deputy Township Clerk. Can I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
I'll second. I'll second.
Great. Jamie, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Jenny?
Aye.
Ms. Pareo?
Aye.
Mr. Burrell?
Aye. And next, we have our consent agenda. Are there any objections to the items in the consent agenda, Council?
No.
Seeing no objections, I'll ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2000, the whole consent agenda, which includes Resolution 2021-174, all the way to Resolution 2021-176. Can I get a motion in a second?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Jamie, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Jenny?
Aye.
Ms. Pareo?
Aye.
Mr. Burrell?
Aye. Motion carries. Next up, we have our motion. I need a motion authorizing the payment of bills, including all purchases made under the Cooperative Purchasing Agreement.
Motion. I'll second.
Jamie?
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Jenny?
Aye.
Ms. Pareo?
Aye.
Mr. Burrell?
Aye. Motion carries. Next up, I need a motion granting the mercantile licenses which are listed in the agenda packet therein. Taking a motion in a second.
Motion. I'll second.
Jamie?
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Jenny?
Aye.
Ms. Pareo?
Aye.
Mr. Burrell?
Aye. Motion carries. Next up, we have our work session portion of the agenda. For those folks who are joining us in the public and online, we have this is our work session meeting. So the balance of our meeting will involve all of these work session agendas, and then public comment will be at the end of the meeting. So buckle up and join us for the ride. So first up, we have our Route 130 corridor plan, which is a good solid 230 pages. So Jeff, do you have anything you want to keep us abreast of with that?
The Route 130 Corridor Endorsement Plan is a review process that attempts to coordinate the state, county, and municipal planning efforts in achieving goals and policies of the State Planning Act. Completion of the plan endorsements made communities eligible for some benefits provided by state agencies. The county and the township went through this process back in 2009, and it was due to be updated a year and a half ago, but due to COVID-19, it was delayed, so they are looking for the process to be completed this year. The township officials have been going through the draft plan for Delran Township, had previously submitted some documents, including responding through the questionnaire that was required as part of the process through the township planner. We had a Zoom meeting with the county coordinator for the plan, along with the township's designated review group, to provide some additional input. Some input was sent to me by email. That information will be forwarded to the Bridge Commission designee who's been overseeing this project to submit to the state or incorporate in the plan with the state Tonight, we just need to open the meeting in regard to the public comments any residents may have in regard to it. And then at the completion of it, if we could walk on a resolution to endorse the plan so that we can forward that in time to meet the deadlines of the state plan.
Greg, so if I heard you right, you want to open the public comment now and then walk on resolution?
Yes, on this plan, if anybody has any specific comments concerning the state plan.
Okay. And that would be
Or the
resolution.
Fort Delran Township, Route 130 corridor plan, Fort Delran.
78.
78. Okay. So at this time, I'll ask for a motion to open the floor to public comment on Route 130 corridor plan, and that plan only. Can I get a motion in a second from council?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. The floor is now open for public comment on the Route 130 corridor plan only. This was posted online, the full 130 plus pages of it. So is there any comment from the public regarding the Route 130 corridor plan? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing no comment, at that time I'll ask for a motion to close the floor.
I make a motion to close the floor.
And a
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? No, the motion is carried. Our floor is now closed. Jeff, at this time, we'll pass the resolution.
Yeah, there's a resolution attached with that, and council should pass that.
178.
I'd just like to state, Mr. President, it was very, very detailed, and actually had some really good information about some progress that's been made in the Route 130 corridor. And I think with the amount of time that people put in on this, it's obviously showing results.
Yes, it's very thorough, and despite my joke about the length of it, it's really quite impressive report, and shows that there's a lot that goes behind the scenes of it, as you mentioned.
Absolutely.
And it is a good read to see the different agencies involved and the extent of the planning that goes into these type of things.
Agreed.
For sure. So, any other questions or comments from council? Great. So with that, Jamie, I'll ask for your help with this. We're at 178.
Yeah, we're trying to find the
Yeah, I
copy
read
of
it
the
earlier
sample,
today. There's a model resolution.
so I can get you the title.
I'm trying. It's a long report.
Need a resolution, Jane?
Yeah, I didn't print that out for tonight. It was in the email agenda packet. Thank you.
All right, so at this time, I'll ask for a motion and a second for Resolution 2021-178. That's a statement of intent to pursue the plan endorsement and authorization to submit the municipal self-assessment report to the Office of Smart Growth.
Motion?
Second.
Jamie, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Jenny?
Aye.
Ms. Pareo?
Aye.
Mr. Burrell?
Aye. The ayes have it, and the resolution carries. Thank you very much, Jeff, for being on top of that. And next up, we have our best practices worksheet from the state. Always checking in. So, Jeff, do you want to kind of go over this with us here?
On an annual basis, the state sends out to us a best practices inventory that has to be filled out by the CFO, reviewed by myself, and then Jamie has to certify that we brought it forward to the township council for review. You have an attached copy of the inventory, which are questions. The first 25 questions are scored, and those questions, you have to meet a certain number of yeses and points that come with those yeses in order to continue to receive all of your Contra aid and for your energy tax aid. We more than meet the criteria that required in respect to the best practices. And then there are a number of questions that are sort of prospective that may find their way onto a future best practices worksheet, or just to raise awareness of things that we should be looking at in the future. And they do not get scored, but are forwarded to the state for review. So you all have a copy of it. We brought it to your attention. If anybody has any questions on any of the question in the best practices, like I said, we more than meet the criteria necessary to receive all of our aid for the year 2022.
Great. Any questions or comments from council? this is just a good way for the state to check up, and also they imply what they want us to do by putting on some of these items. So thank you very much, Jeff. There's no other action for us, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. Next up, we have our We Value Our Veterans Award, was brought to us by Mr. Gilbert, who gave me a call before tonight's meeting. He had surgery on his arm, but was asking about if we were doing the Veterans Day ceremony, so we'll eventually talk about that, hopefully with the RAC in the near future. But he brought this to us about different ways we can get this award. So Jeff prepared a memo. Jeff, do you want to give us just like the elevator version of this?
Sure.
What you want from us?
There are a number of items that you can do in order to get certified as a value veteran program by the state. You have to accumulate 145 points. There are a number of items here which will have to take place over the year 2022 because you have to set up some meetings with veteran groups, and there are a number of items that we've included in the mercantile applications that went out this month, where we're asking businesses, because there are a number of them that require business participation, businesses, whether or not they're veteran-owned, whether or not they would participate in providing things like a veteran parking spot, things along those lines. So it's not something that can be done overnight, but I outlined the things that you would need to do in order to meet it. And if you want to continue on with it, that you could set this as an agenda item next year with your meeting quarterly, some of the quarterly requirements of meeting with veterans groups. You already do a Memorial and Veteran Day ceremonies, just document those kinds of things. But all of the items are spelled out in terms of what you would have to do to meet it, but it essentially will take approximately a year to meet all those criteria.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's a good idea for the township to do some of these. Some of these are pretty low-hanging fruit and stuff that we already do, so it sort of just, reminds us of ways to honor veterans and keeps us, abreast of that. I think it's a good thing to do. But any thoughts, comments from council?
No, I would absolutely agree. In fact, I went through quickly, and some of these, as Jeff suggested, already are pretty low. You suggested are low-hanging fruit. I think we have about 115 points without having to do too much. I mean, it's a pretty basic things there that we can accomplish.
Yeah, I think anything we can do to support our veterans is fantastic, so definitely on board.
Agreed.
So Jeff, in terms of some of these items, like meetings and stuff, we'll just work through the administration to do that, to set up those quarterly meetings and things,
You
Mayor?
have to set up some quarterly meetings, and we are waiting for some responses on the questionnaires that went out with the mercantile license. Since that went out to all the businesses,
Okay.
we will get some of those responses to be able to move forward on, I think there's 3 different items that would require business participation, and we're already getting responses on some of them. So
That's great. Great. So this will be a long-term project, but I think relatively easy enough, and I think important enough for us to put some time into. So Mayor, we'll be relying on you for some of those.
That sounds great.
Great. Anything else with that, Jeff?
No.
Okay, great. Thank you. And next up is our risk management coordinator. With Jeff's retirement coming up, it creates some things we got to address as you leave us. So Jeff, you want to provide us with a quick assessment of this?
What it provided, we're one of, there were 2 towns, I don't know if it may just be down to 1, because I think the other administrator that was allowed to do it had retired last year. But since 1991, I've been doing the risk management coordination for the township's representation with the joint insurance fund. So unless you have someone who's been involved in that, more than likely you're going to need a risk management coordinator. All the other towns in the other 25 all have risk management coordinators. And what I did was provide you with a model of what the joint insurance fund put together for what they feel the responsibilities are for a risk management coordinator. And if that's the direction you want to go, you could put out, along with your RFPs for the professionals this year, put one out for a risk management coordinator. And because you need to do a resolution and provide an option to join insurance fund by January 25th of next year because it impacts your bill. Usually it's 6% of the total premiums. You're looking at somewhere around $36,000 a year.
Yeah, Jeff, there was something about if we don't, there's, like you have to sign a waiver of liability or something?
I'm sorry.
If we don't, not that we wouldn't,
Right.
but if we don't,
With me, you've been passing a resolution to hold the joint insurance fund claimants for not having a risk management coordinator. They strongly recommend, there were two of us that were around 30-some years, so they were okay with the two of us, but they strongly recommend a risk management coordinator, meaning the Jeff. But it's up to you guys whether or not you want to take on that liability.
so that would be something we would do in January, go out to bid.
That was a floor.
Jamie usually sends it out in November.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Appoint in January.
Right.
Yeah.
Is this a full-time position? Is it a consultant?
It's usually a consultant. There are a number that service the JIF, and I can give you information on those individuals as well. As much information as you want. I can recommend a couple people that are very good at do it. But, it's entirely up to you.
And what's the going rate for that? I mean,
6%. 6% of the
Yes.
total assessment. Ours is a little under $600,000, so it's roughly $36,000 a year.
I mean, I think it's one of those things you sort of have to do.
Yeah.
There's really not
Yeah.
Pretty much.
one of those decisions that we don't have much say in it, which is good.
Jeff is just recommending that we start the process.
Yeah, so-
So that we're on track with when it becomes necessary. I'm assuming that the resumes that we're receiving, I haven't seen anybody that would qualify unless I missed it.
I haven't seen anybody that does that.
Right.
That service.
Got it.
So if we could just put on our, Jamie or the administration side to go out to bid for this come that season, please.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions or comment from council? All right. And next up, we have, item number E is our transfer resolution. This is just some budget transfer for Jeff. Do you want to give us a quick
Yeah,
rundown?
these are just 3 budget transfers that the CFO is recommending. You can't do transfers until November, but we wanted to actually see them. I asked her to put them together for any accounts. Usually by year end, you have some accounts that are over budget, and you have some that are under. None of these are significant. I mean, they're 3,000, 3,600, not much in terms of dollars. So, but we want to let you see them before the November public meeting. You probably are going to have one for trash collection as well, because that bid obviously came in much higher than we anticipated, but there still is some significant monies in there, so we're going to keep a close eye on that one as well.
Okay, great. This is standard stuff we do at the end of every fiscal year, so we'll look forward to that on our public meeting in a week or so. Next up, we have our body camera grant. Always a good thing when we're talking about grants. So Jeff?
Yes, we received the police department applied for and received a grant for $69,292 for a body-worn camera grant. And we have the resolution here. You can, we just want to let you see it and then put it on the November meeting. The grant actually lasts 5 years. We do not need, at this point in time, to replace our body cameras, but we will, and they want this resolution in place in order for us to draw on it as those start to wear out.
That's great. Any questions, comments from members of the council? No. Always love when we're talking about grants, so that's great. We'll put that on our November meeting. And next up, another purchase is our four-wheel sewer pickup truck, which we talked about in the capital budget. So Jeff, this is just moving forward with that?
Yeah, this is just to let you see, we'd like to put this on the November meeting. It is sewer department four-wheel drive pickup truck to replace an existing older truck. I provided a copy of the specifications, and it would be a purchase through the New Jersey state contract. to Winterford, who has the New Jersey State contract. So it was something that was approved in the capital budget and approved during the time we put, the sewer budget. It was not in the capital budget because we had funds in the sewer budget to purchase it, but since it's a large item, I wanted council to see it before we put it on for action.
Great. And I know we've talked about the capital budget for hours and hours and hours, but is there any other question from council or comment? Great. We'll put that on the next meeting. And finally, we have our tree ordinance, which has been a long time running, and I know Jamie sent out an edit to that. I should have clarified, it's my fault based on my instructions to Jamie, but there was only one line of that changed and we just struck it. So the substantive portion of the ordinance did not change at all. So I'm sorry if everybody read the 8 pages of it before they got here. But thanks, Sal, for getting that edit made real quick. So this is just the final draft of what we all talked about at, I think it was a couple meetings back. Sal's office with help of Jennifer, a great team, and shout out to Deb, because without her, I don't think this would have got over the hurdle, so thank you very much. They got it to a final form, so it's just here in front of us. If there's any other lingering items we want to address before it ultimately gets introduced, the first reading would be November, the next meeting. Is there any other thoughts or comments from council on this?
It's just really, really well put together. I've seen the drafts, and this final version it's just really inclusive. It's going to help protect our greenlands in town and provide trees going forward that may be cut down without any regard for the value of having them. Well done.
Yeah, I agree. And the Green team has some great members, and they prepared a visual, which was sent around to council, but eventually will be prepared for the website, and there'll be some nice documentation with it. So it's pretty clear to the residents, the intent, the purpose, and I believe Deb's working on a flow chart, which will help, more detailed, more nuanced flow chart. So we're working on that. But if there's no other questions or thoughts with that, then that'll be on for first reading, and then officially be on the books by the end of the year.
Awesome.
All right? Great. With that concludes our work session, the official items on the work session. So, seeing no other, we'll now go to our reports. First up, our clerk, Jamie Eggers. Jamie, any report for us tonight?
Just one item tonight. We received a request, we get this every year, to place the clothing bin in the lobby for the suits for soldiers. I just want to make sure that nobody has any questions or concerns, and if they do not, I will give them the okay to put the bin in the lobby.
Yep, I think we do it every year. It's a great program, so
Okay.
it's not an
Thank you.
issue.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Jamie. Next up, our administrator, Jeff Hatcher.
No report this evening.
Oh, Jeff, were you going to bring up Conroe Road? I thought Jim was
No,
going to be here.
I apologize.
Okay.
Yes. We have a request that we sent out information that the contractor has requested after a meeting with the school board and township officials with doing the milling of Conroe Road on the evenings of tomorrow evening, Thursday, and Friday, if needed, essentially from 4 to 5 o'clock until 1 o'clock in the morning, in order to not impact the schools. The contractor went out and surveyed the area and saw that it will create a commotion if we try to do it during the working hours with the schools. And so they're asking for relief in order to do it. Then they would come back when the school is out of session in the first week in November to do the actual paving. They're requesting council's approval.
Yeah, I know we just did this for Chester Ave due to the nature of the road, specifically that there's a municipal building, EMS, fire department, police station, and the school on the road. So this is a similar situation with the school. And I think council remembers our conversations with Jim and the chief of police, acting chief of police then, regarding the safety concerns associated with that. And speaking with them before the meeting a couple weeks ago about this, when it was brought up, they still have those same concerns, and the concerns about, if we do this during the day, Millbridge and the high school will all be impacted by, the student travel and the buses. And, the most particular concern is that if one bus is delayed, it delays the next school's pickup, and it starts to spiral out of control very rapidly. So I think as it doesn't give council much pleasure, I think we should strongly entertain, letting them do it. Jeff, it's only for a night and a half, right? They want to do,
Basically 2.5 nights, yes.
yeah.
Council President, if I just could interject.
Sure.
We are going to notice the residents, right?
Yes.
Because unlike Chester Avenue, where there really were only a handful of residents, that line is run through and is pretty quick notice, so the contractor or someone will give them notice.
Yes.
Yeah. Any thoughts, questions from council?
And just to confirm, so the paving will take place Wednesday, November 3rd through the 5th?
They essentially feel it'll only take 2 days, 3 and 4. I mean, if weather permitting, if it takes another day, but it will be during the closed school area.
And for the record, there's two problems if we have to take a balance of what's going on, right? We can take a look. Option one is we do this and allow the nighttime for this 2 nights, right? Option two is we delay it until the spring break. That has been done before, and the problem with that is if it rains or if you have a snowy spring break, that erodes right away. The weather will affect that, so you're kind of gambling. And also, the con to that is that the road is in disrepair until the spring break season, right? And we have the county there who's ripped it apart at that bridge, and I really don't like that. I don't think it should stay that way for long. And then the other option, number 3, is just go to the summer, and we'll do it in the summer after school's out. But I think by that time the road will literally be a war zone. I just don't think it'll hold up through the winter. So as much as it's not the greatest option, number 1, and we don't take joy in it any more than anything else, but I think it's the most prudent and based on the 3 options that we have in front of us.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's a safety issue also. You have 3 churches, 2 schools, 3 schools actually. You have the Montessori middle school, the intermediate, and the high school. You've got the three churches. Yeah, I think to get it done, communicate to everyone as the mayor suggested, so they're aware of what's going to happen. I think people will appreciate getting the road finished. The bridge is done, and it'll be a nice another paved road we've gotten done.
Yeah. And it's, unfortunately, with the Chesters, the Hartfords, and the Conroes of the world, they're main arteries, right? So it's not as easy as just doing the streets we all live on. You can do them in the middle of the day, nobody's home. It creates a different layer. So it's sort of cost of doing business with these streets.
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
And 1 a.m. is better than 5 a.m., right?
Yeah. So Jeff, do you need anything official from?
If you just do a vote.
Is it a resolution or a motion?
Not a vote, just a roll call.
Okay, so a motion to allow them to do the paving during the times Jeff specified for those 2.5 nights. Can I get a motion and a second, please?
Motion?
Second.
You want roll call or just voice vote? All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Jeff, you can let them know.
I let the engineer know to let the residents, to get the residents notified. He said they'll get notified as soon as they can do it first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay, that'll be great. Thank you, Jeff. Anything else? Jeff, you're good. Okay. Next up, we have our report from our mayor, Mayor Katzenbach.
Evening, everybody. So normally at a work session, we don't do long reports, but this is the first since the Carly Lloyd event, and we have a number of things going on. So I apologize, but there's a couple of important things that we want to get done here. First of which, with Bill Kersey stepping down from the Green Team, I'd like to appoint a replacement in the name of Rob Mayer, the term to expire 2022. So I believe that's just my appointment, and we're good to go. So congratulations to Rob. Second, I'd like to, there's been a number of questions regarding the trick-or-treating and what's happening. Again, it's falling on the weekend, and everybody always has a question, when can it start, when can it end? And obviously parents with the younger children are always interested in getting out early, and I understand that. However, it is a Sunday this year, so we'd ask that maybe you wait until people get home from church or their family breakfast or whatever. While we can't really tell you when to start, we would ask that you give it till maybe late afternoon at that point, and to be courteous to your neighbors. And we do have a 9 p.m. curfew for Halloween for trick-or-treating, and that's by ordinance. And so I would let everybody know that no matter what time you start, 9 p.m. is when it would end. And also like to remind folks that are driving out on that night to be extra patient in that there are children on the road crossing, looking for the candy. So be alert for those children, as their safety is always our top priority. Also, on October 14th, obviously we had a tremendous event that was described by all that attended as a wonderful, magical, beautiful. There was a number of superlatives, and that was celebrating one of Delran's favorite daughters, Carly Lloyd. So after all of us being separated over the long pandemic, it was great to have that event. It was outside, it was safe, and it was, I believe, exactly what the residents wanted, and most especially our children, who needed to come together as family and recognize not only Carly's career, which is exceptional, but what she represents to our small town. Carly is the epitome of hard work and the relentless pursuit of self-improvement. I was watching some of her, or I read some of her stories that were actually written by her that were just wonderful, explained how she felt during some of those periods of time. And it was a moment that she could share with us. She was very expressive during the event, and her speech was wonderful. So each and every member of our Delran family has been inspired, I think, to be better versions of ourselves because of Carly. Because of her inspiration, and we received tremendous support for that, because Carly is so well liked and so well respected. From the volunteers that were there and supported us, there were just under, I think, 200 volunteers, folks that said, yeah, I'll help out if it's for Carly, it sounds great. And the corporate sponsors, which were wonderful, each of them wanting to contribute, some asking us if they can contribute. We didn't have to go to them for some of that. I'm happy to report that approximately, not everything is in yet, but it looks like about 51% of the money that was spent for that event was covered by corporate sponsorships and donations. So I know there were some residents who weren't able to be there because it was the night of an Eagles game, and it was a home game, and it was against Tom Brady, and we get that. And even Carly said, I probably wouldn't have agreed to this date if I realized what was going on that night. But we were happy that she was here, and the Eagles were nice enough to provide some video footage for the event. And all of that footage will be available soon. There was a ton of it. And we're still getting requests from the press for footage and access to some of that. So we're working through that. It was a big deal, and it's a whole lot of video. So in addition to the donors and the sponsors and the volunteers, there were a lot of other people that were involved. And a big player in that were the Delran Public Works. They did a stellar job, as they always do. They're often overlooked because you don't really see them in the forefront, and they're not really talked about a whole lot, but they did a great job. I'd also like to mention and thank the Delran Police Department, the Fire Department, the Delran EMS, the Riverside Fire Department, the Cinnaminson Fire Department, the Burlington County Fire Department, the Burlington County Sheriff's Department, including their canine unit that was there sweeping the field earlier in the day, and the New Jersey State Police. It was a tremendous undertaking that night, and it was planned in a whole lot shorter time than normally we would plan Delran Night Out. I think I'm getting a nod from the chairman of the RAC. So we really want to thank the public safety team that was assembled, and many of them were volunteering, were paid by their respective organizations, that rose to the occasion. It was an example of what I think the gold standard of public safety can be at a large event like that. And on behalf of the residents and the RAC, the council, and myself, I'd just like to thank all of those folks that kept us safe for their organization, planning, and execution that evening. Finally, I had the honor of attending the Burlington County Outstanding Women's Award Ceremony last week, and I'd like to congratulate all the women in Burlington County who were honored that evening, but especially one of Delran's own, Skylar Bratz, who was chosen for the Alice Paul Champion Award for raising sexual assault awareness through her work with Contact of Burlington County. We will be presenting her with an official mayor proclamation at whichever public meeting she can attend as she's away at school. She did speak in a video that night from school, and she was wonderful. She's a very, very impressive young woman, and I'd just like to make mention of her accomplishment tonight because we are very, very Delran proud of her. And that's my report.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up, we have from our Solicitor's Office, Sal Siciliano. Sal?
No report this evening.
Thank you, Counselor. And finally, reports from members of council. First up, Councilwoman Virginia Pereira. Councilwoman?
Yes, really quickly. PSNG is currently working on Ward 1. When they are done, the roads that were disturbed by the utility companies will be repaved. And it is looking like they will start paving sometime in November, weather permitting. That's all I have. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Councilwoman, for the update. Next up, we have Councilman Marlo Smith.
Yeah, just real quick, just building on what Mayor Catherine Bone mentioned about it being Halloween this weekend. I know the weather forecast has rain coming down for the next few days. They can bring down some leaves, and just be very mindful of your stopping distance. As you know, young ones will be crossing the streets and not always paying attention to the traffic that's out there. So just be very mindful as you're driving around on Sunday.
Great. Thank you, Councilman. And next up is Councilman Lynn Jenny.
I just want to echo the comments that the mayor made regarding the Carly Lloyd celebration. It was exceptional for the township, but I think most impressive to me was the guidance and the leadership and the example she sets for our young ladies. The teams were there were soccer balls being kicked around before the event, and they were just beside themselves when Carly was there. She went out, she was right in the middle of them, signed autographs. She was great, but our young women in the community really benefited from this as well.
Thanks, Councilman. And finally is my report. The good thing about going last is everyone takes everything I have to say, so I'll echo the sentiments of my colleagues and also plug the Winter Festival, which is scheduled for, I don't have it written down, December 10th. Thank you, Colin. So December 10th is the Winter Festival that's about to be planned. So if there's any volunteers out there, I know we've got a couple from the Carly Lloyd event who raised their hand and said they want to help out more. So this is our public outreach. If anyone is interested at all in helping plan events here throughout the town, it's a volunteer board right now of 4 people. So we would love anybody to help out and join. And those meetings are online. The dates are online under the RAC tab. So with that,
Would you have someone to appoint for REC?
we do. We'll do that the next.
Next one?
Yes.
Okay.
So with that, we will now go to public comments. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to open the floor to public comment.
I'll make a motion.
And a second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Those opposed? The motion carries. The floor is now open to public comment. Before we get to public comment, I just like to clarify some of the rules of decorum for our public comment section due to the amount of people here tonight, which is always a great thing to have. It's normally us in here alone, so we welcome everybody. So if you do wish to speak, I ask you raise your hand. You'll be recognized. At that time, you may approach, just kind of stand here in the center and use your outdoor voice so we can hear you on our recording device. You'll be asked to state your name and address for the record. All remarks should be addressed to the council president who's presiding. An individual speaker, we ask, in the respect of other people here tonight, to limit their comments to around 5 minutes. And all statements are part of the public record, which is both written and recorded, so it cannot be redacted. So with that in mind, if you please raise your hand if you want to speak, you'll be recognized. The floor will be yours. could just step up and please state your name and address for the record.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Patrick Duff. I'm actually a Haddon Heights resident. I live at 615 Garden Street. I grew up right here at 812 Chester Avenue. My brother was the first heavyweight state champion. Wrestling, family won 6 state championships altogether, football, wrestling, track. So to be called a non-resident from Delran, a little frustrating, you know.
Well, we welcome you back. We welcome you here.
I'm glad to be back. You know, I just so you know what I do, I'm a researcher, a writer, and an activist. So I go all around the towns all around New Jersey, seeking open public records requests. Just last year, I sued 6 municipalities. I won every single lawsuit. Okay? So when I filed against Delran, I could be sure number 7 is in my pocket. And I'll tell you why. Because Delran is censoring comments on your Facebook page, on a public page. If you just look up, just type in social media, ACLU New Jersey, public comments, you'll see very easily that the case law states that you cannot censor comments. You have to be content neutral, meaning you can't just allow the positive ones and take away the negative ones. That's not the way it works, okay? Now, what I also find actually appalling is that in a move that I think was a move to try to help silence dissent in Delran, the township took on a communications director earlier this year that runs one of the township's Facebook pages that censors comments on there also, which is a major conflict of interest. Now, I don't know if anybody knows, you're talking about Carly Lloyd. Carly Lloyd has almost 2 million people on her fan page. Do you know whose name she put on her fan page telling me to stop questioning the finances into the event? Me. You know how many hate messages I got in my inbox because of that? Hundreds. The mayor put me on the Facebook page, calling me the non-resident, saying I'm questioning things, saying I'm claiming coercion's happening and all these things with the variance, which was never claimed. I'm very careful with what I do. Very careful to stick by the facts. So my lawyer, C.J. Griffin, can prepare a lawsuit to sue you and have you open up the Facebook comments and make the Delran 2.0 page either open to the public because it's being run by a public employee and it should be, or have the person as a public employee give up their admin status to it, because it doesn't make any sense to, it does make sense if you're in a communist country to limit the comments, but not in a democracy. We live in a democracy where people need to have a voice. When you silence their voice, what happens is people get frustrated and they get scared. I've gotten more private messages from people scared to talk in Delran than any town that I've ever worked in doing this open public stuff, open public records information stuff, okay? Literally, okay, I don't know if you've seen, but Martin Luther King, his first civil rights battle happened in Maple Shade, New Jersey. He was living in Camden, New Jersey. I'm the researcher that's brought that to light. Okay, I found things that no other researcher in the world has found about Martin Luther King. There's a church in Philadelphia that a celebration is going to happen on November 19th that's going to celebrate the day that he found nonviolence because of my research. I'm a high school dropout in Delran, by the way. All right? So I take these things personally because I was really forgotten about in school. They put me in a closet because I asked questions in Delran. I told people Columbus didn't discover anything. They put me in a closet. Now look, everybody agrees now. All America agrees Columbus didn't discover anything. So I want an apology from the mayor, a public apology from the mayor, for placing me on his Facebook page, calling me a non-resident, saying things I didn't do, that then put Carly into a position of putting me on her Facebook page with millions of people. The non-resident, which she's a non-resident too. So I'm asking 2 things. Open your Facebook page up for comments. Don't close all comments. Don't let your citizens comment. The negative comments make you better as public officials. That's the way it works. And number 2, to either take the admin down from the 2.0 page as your employee, fire her, and or open that public or page up to the public like the judge will probably wind up making you do. So I'm seeking a public apology, Mayor. I really think you owe me one.
Great. Thank you very much for your statement, your comment this evening. Seriously, great work with the Martin Luther King discovering that. That's fantastic news. But in addressing your two items that you brought up to us, we're not in a position to comment on any litigation. As you just mentioned, C.J. Griffin, who I'm familiar with, there's no comment on any pending litigation. I'm sure you can respect that.
There's no pending litigation. I'm asking you guys to make no pending litigation.
And second,
so we can make it fair for your citizens.
Second, there was, I'll hand it over to the mayor. Mayor, if you want to address, there are administrative issues regarding your Facebook page is referring to your Facebook page, and the admin issue regarding communications director is also personnel. So if you would like to comment.
No, the Delran Township Facebook page is, I'm sure, within legal compliance.
Any other questions from members of the public? Or comments, I should say.
I actually just wanted to finish my comment.
You're more than welcome. You have to come up to the...
My apologies.
Thank you.
The reason why I started this all in Delran, by the way, is because there was just a simple question on the pages of how much did the event cost, right? So I got back the event cost. That was the first offer I got. It says $37,633.88. By the way, I have a photograph. Remember, you got to watch out. When it said that, it said all these event costs. Part of it was fireworks. I put that up on the page. People started going nuts saying there's donations that help pay for all this stuff. So I put another request in. I said I want to know the donations too. I got another request back with different numbers that didn't add up from the original request and showed about $35,000 in donations, okay? The third request I made was to clarify how much, and this is specific, so everybody understands, how much of the donations offset the cost of the event. Jamie Eggers replied to me that none of the cost of the event was offset by donations. When I released that information to the Delran public, let's just say poop hit the fan. Okay? And I think that information and the lack of clarity, which should have been given in the mayor's post, not to step on the variance's neck, the lack of clarity has caused the township to feel like there's been something hidden. And it definitely makes me feel like, now that the mayor said that 51% of the cost were covered by donations, well, that wasn't given to me in my Oprah request when I requested it. They just said all the costs were $37,000 and that none of that cost was offset by donations. Now everything's changing. So I would request that you get a simple Oprah request for figures for an event should be really easy to do. And when they're not, that's when people start asking questions. So you can go look through your Oprah request and see what it was. And please clarify those numbers.
Yeah, gotcha. So for the record, everything, all our financials, the good thing about municipal government is the most regulated industry I've ever worked in. For sure, we have auditors, we have CFOs, we have administrators, purchase orders. Everything is well documented down to the penny. Your Oprah request came in early in the process. The figures haven't changed. If they are changing, it's because more purchase orders are finally getting cut. The billing process is not like private business where it comes in and the CFO writes the check right away. We have processes here. But I do want to clarify the allegation that the money was not offset or was put into this bank account that nobody's aware of. According to state law, for us to accept donations, there's a process which is called a dedication by rider. It's statute 40A 4-39 for anyone who's interested in reading about it. We did this actually in 2018. We dedicated an account called Delran Events, which was dedicated by rider. It's approved by, it's the director of the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. That's where all donations for any events that come in to this township go into that account. It's called the Delran Events Fund, which is actually a trust account. All those donations that came into this event, the 38 plus thousand, whatever the number may be, went into that account. When bills are purchased, when anything is purchased, whether it's fireworks, porta potties, or if it's tablecloths for the event, they get put out of the RAC budget. It doesn't get itemized out of that trust account yet. So it's technically not an offset in that check itself from a donor paid for the fireworks or paid for the tablecloth, but in the end, it all nets out to the same amount, right? If you have a bank account, there's $100 in there, you spend $100, but you later put $100 back in, you still got $100 in there. So it is offsetting at the end when it all balances out. So that all is crystal clear there. Any other questions, comments, or statements from the public? If you could please raise your hand.
the event cost?
I can get back to you in a minute. Go ahead. Do you have the file numbers? Please provide the numbers.
Mass is killing it. Jeff Bodner, 116 Kathleen. Mayor and I talked just a little bit ago, but look, when I came in the building, I walked up to the building tonight, and I see the sign on there that says, mask required. All right, fine. I went back to my car. I got this. So I came in here. I was going to wear the mask, but Tyler, I saw you up here. You weren't wearing the mask.
I got in early, and then everybody showed up.
But you weren't wearing the mask. And then the other guy who was here, I don't know who he was, he had his mask down like this. Same thing. Well, look, I just want you guys to take care of things like for later. Because while I'm sitting back there, I'm watching every one of you shaking hands, shaking hands. So somehow you're going to use this mask and you're going to shake hands with everybody. Come on, are you 6 feet apart? I'm just letting you know, take the damn sign off. Unless there's a requirement to really have everybody wear a mask. It's nuts. That's all.
Cool. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any other comments or questions from the public?
Just what was the actual cost?
Go ahead. Sure. So, hold on, the mayor, he's recognized first. Oh,
Good evening, everyone. My name's Joe Jagwell. I live at 18 Woodfield Lane in Delran. I just wanted to come in and let everyone know that I am running for a state assembly seat in this district. I'm hoping that I have your support. I know most of you personally. I've worked with you already. The election opened on Saturday for early voting. Will continue through Tuesday this week. I'm well qualified. I'm a pharmacist. For over 25 years now, I own the pharmacy in town on Hartford Road, and I'm running to correct transparency in government, to make fire and EMS essential services, and to make sure that our healthcare system is still viable in the next generation. So that's my platform. And I'm running because it's the right thing to do. We've had 2 Democratic people, one holding one of these seats for the last 22 years, and another candidate from Mount Laurel that's held her seat for the last 4. As a Delran resident for the last 17 years, I've served this town on the zoning board, and I've served many families in Delran as a medical professional. I don't profess to know everything. I'm an expert in medicine. And that is the reason that I'm running for the office. It's gotten to be a complete mess with the pandemic. Independent pharmacies were not allowed access to the vaccine, which is why I couldn't get my town out of the pandemic, because I couldn't get the vaccine. The initial rollout of the vaccine included only 8 independent pharmacies out of 1,200 in the state of New Jersey. The rollout of the vaccine was handled for the first 3 weeks by the federal government, and then the governors of each state were then the ones that made the decision who gets the vaccine. In our state, Governor Murphy gave the vaccine to CVS, Walgreens, Rite Aid, and a couple of big supermarket chains that had multiple pharmacies. In that rollout, only 8 independent pharmacies out of the 1,200 were included because CVS overpromised and underdelivered. And as part of the 1A rollout, nursing homes were included in that group. The 8 independents that were asked to participate because they couldn't get geographically to nursing homes where they are. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we've lost 400 of the 1,200 independent pharmacies in the state. So we're down to 800 of us. We continue to lose any more, they'll be gone forever, and we'll be stuck with only big companies. And if that's not apparent enough, when I opened my business in October of 12, there were 9 medical practitioners that owned their practices in Delran. Today, there's 3. And all the rest are part of a conglomerate: Jefferson, Lourdes, Virtua, Cooper. and more of us are continuing to fall off. If we go away, we will never come back. CVS, Rite Aid, and Walgreens own 90% of the insurance market in the middle. We would deem that a monopoly. And whether I break that monopoly as an assemblyman in the state, or whether I choose to just put some new legislature in place, empowering Dobie a little bit more to know what they're doing and how to do their jobs, perhaps we can end that and have freedom of choice, again, to choose our healthcare practitioners. When the thing that bothered me the most during this entire period was finding out that the fire department and EMS in the state of New Jersey are considered non-essential services. And if that doesn't resonate loudly with this committee and everyone here, the fact that the fire department and EMS are considered non-essential, that's never been addressed or fixed. But thanks to Governor Murphy and the Democratic Assembly and the Democratic Senate, we get to walk into a $46.4 billion budget next year, which represents a 15% increase in the state's budget from last year's full pandemic year. So I'm hoping that I will have enough people that have gotten the message from me that it's time for a change. And with that, I would like to thank you for your time, for listening to me, and for anyone who's come out that's heard me. I will be here through the meeting, and afterwards, if anyone would like to speak with me. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Should we mention that that's really not appropriate conversation for this or no? So?
I mean, it's really political, this is governmental, so it's really
Yeah.
not. But
Do you want to give the figures? Would you like to give the figures?
I did, didn't I?
no.
Would you like to give the figures? Sure. Please go ahead.
Sure. So the folks that were asking about the numbers for the Carly Lloyd event, these are the expenses as we believe are complete, except for those line items that would be police overtime and public works overtime, as they are not from the budget item list that we have, and that is calculated separately, although I do remind you that all the other services that came to help us, like the Sheriff's Department, were paid by their respective organizations. So the total for this was $90,456 and 93 cents, and the total donations were $46,166, of which 7,000 have not as yet been received, but have been committed as recently as today to make sure that they were on their way. So that's 51% of the total budget for the event that came from the RAC's budget, as well as the Special Events Trust, as well as the donations left us, I think, with the several $1,000 remainder that will be put toward the next event, and we'll be fine. We continue to request additional sponsorships for the future events that come in. So those are the numbers, and as we said, half of that, 51%, was paid by private and corporate donations.
Great, thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Any other public comments at this time? Last call.
I just wanted to say,
If you're going to be recognized.
just because it's kind of upsetting, what the mayor just said.
Mr. Duff, real quick, if you don't mind.
Patrick
Mr. Duff, you could just wrap this up, and
Yeah, very quick.
I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
That could have been just the easy thing to do in an open request. Instead, the open request at $37,000 it costs, not $90,000 in costs. So I don't know where these extra costs come from. Now there's $40-something thousand in donations when it only showed $30-something thousand. So the numbers change, and they shouldn't be static. That's all I want to say.
Thank you very much.
If it was static in my business, he would be fired right away.
Never mind. That's it.
No, go on.
Any other public comments?
Close.
Last call. Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to close the floor.
Motion.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. The floor is now closed, and our evening is still got left to go, so I'll ask for a motion to go into executive session with Resolution 2021-177, authorizing executive session to discuss Chief of Police personnel matter. Can I get a motion and a second, please?
I'll make a motion.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. We will now go into executive session. In the meantime, we will have a 5-minute recess. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This on, and ladies and gentlemen, we are back from executive session. There's no action to be taken. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Thank you, Lynn. All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.